All right, biblical environmentalism. Hopefully your first thought was those two words don't go together. That's a good place to start. I do want to finish this up today, and I got a lot of pages, but a lot of it is some examples of people's writings to read you, then we can cut that short. Biblical environmentalism. The first point I have here is a biblical view of the environment. What, as Christians, how do we handle this thing? All right, let's start by at least phrasing our discussion in light of kind of two extreme opinions. Usually the tree huggers accuse people like us of being the one extreme, and we accuse them of being the other. And really, both extremes are wrong. The Bible position is between those. That's not always the case, but here it really is. So here's two extremes. Some of the crazy environmental people, they believe that nature is supreme, and man must give way to allow nature to flourish in its pristine, undisturbed setting. These same people also tell us that we're just animals. So I keep, wolves are allowed to kill other animals and eat them and destroy the environment. Bears scratch trees and rip their bark off and kill them. But somehow when these animals do that, that's somehow, anyway, there's some issues with their consistency. But anyway, they take the point that man isn't part of nature and that we should stay out of the way and let nature should take precedence. And if there's a conflict between what men want and what is natural, then we should give way. If there's this has really happened, some endangered, what was the word, the Furbish louse wort, I think Reagan talked about in those, Reagan in his own words. Then, we've got to halt building a power plant and other things. Man has to give way to allow nature to flourish. The other side of it, the other extreme, is that the earth is here for us to abuse and destroy. That also is false. I mean, we are not given the world to destroy wantonly. So often, this is true lots of places, but also here, lots of times in this discussion, if you the tree huggers will say, oh, you guys just want to destroy the environment, and you want air pollution, and you want lead in the water, and you want three-eyed fish in Lake Michigan because of all the nuclear waste. You just go crazy with this. And if that's really what we wanted, that would be wrong. Okay. And very often people on our side turn to them and go to the extreme that we just described there. So, all right, so those are the kind of two extreme positions. The Bible puts us really in the middle if we're going to come up with a Bible idea. That's my second point, the correct view or the Bible view. I've got 3 points here that I think we can get from the Bible very easily, but can anybody think of anything? Anything about any biblical ideas or verses or passages that would have a bearing on the environment?
We were given dominion over the earth.
Okay. That's my second point, but we can do it first. Man is given dominion. All right? That is here for us. If you go out squirrel hunting and you blast a squirrel with your 12 gauge, once you pick all the buckshot, well, hopefully don't shoot with buckshot, all the bird shot out, whatever meat's left, and you go and eat it, you are... that squirrel has fulfilled its highest purpose on earth, being eaten by men, as opposed to a fox or something like that, or just getting run over by a truck and the crows picking at it. It was here for us to eat. All right, so we are given dominion. Anybody like squirrel? Not too bad. Tastes like chicken? I've not had squirrel for a long time, but my uncle shot some squirrels over the summer. And they were arguing about who got to eat the brain. They are from the hills of West Virginia. All right. If you need a verse here, Genesis 1:26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, in the image of God created he him, male and female. Verse 28, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth, etc. So this dominion mandate sometimes is called. We are told that the earth is here for us and we are to subdue it. So maybe we should give you girls a chance to go blast Bambi with a 12 gauge as part of your duty to God to subdue the earth. Anybody want to go? Girls. We're talking about girls. What's wrong with Bambi?
No, we can blast Bambi. That's fine.
Okay. The meat's more tender.
There's not as much.
That's true. So you have to shoot 2 Bambis.
That's one big one.
One big Bambi. So you're going to be the meat hunter that kills Bambi's mom.
Yes.
Oh, that's... Oh, it's a dad. You're going to kill both, probably. I can see. All right, dominion mandate. Any questions there? You don't have to feel guilty when you eat meat. It's not somehow immoral. Yeah, I don't either. But I mean, sometimes environmental or vegetarians talk. There are this moral high ground. Who gives you the right to kill that poor innocent animal and eat it? And you could say, God. God tells me to. The teens are having a Defend Your Faith night tonight. If you have any siblings there, one of the They get challenged on certain doctrines, and there's one of the staff guys that represents a heretic, and he tries to argue a wrong position. They have to argue the other. There's a couple that Pastor Parrish came up with just for fun, just to kind of get the idea flowing. One of the questions is a vegetarian hypocritical if they eat animal crackers? So, and are left-handed people more prone to violence? Who's left-handed here? Or maybe we can just do a quick poll.
Yes.
Yeah. I told my girls that they should say that left-handed people get picked on a lot, and they let that build up, and the rage inside causes them to be violent.
I'm usually compassionate and forgiving, and so we forget all of the horrible things that right now.
Can you see? You can hear that resentment there inside. Okay, dominion. We're supposed to have dominion. Okay, anything else? I'm sorry. Man is supposed to have dominion. I have a little side point there that I think is implied and probably already stated. Man is more important than the animals. Right? We take precedence. If it does come down to us and some endangered species, then take some pictures and then kill it. We take precedent. Stuff it. That's even better. Put it in a museum. That way you can be there as an old woman and say, I remember when those things were alive. And the kids will look at you, you are old, aren't you? All right, so man's given dominion. We are more important than the animals and the trees and the plants and those types of things. So, all right, anything else from the Bible? Or is that exhaust the Bible's viewpoint on the environment? It doesn't. Yes. Okay, I have the second, or my third point is that God gave man the job of taking care of the earth. It is given to us. We're more important than all these things, but we are stewards, stewardship. I actually have that word in parentheses, steward. If you look in Genesis 2:8, and the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, and the tree of knowledge. Oh, why did I put that one there? There's talking about God planting the garden, taking care of it. After the fall. Put the wrong verse. Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns and thistles, etc., shalt thou eat of the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat of the bread, till thou return to the ground. Right? The whole situation changes. Man is given the job and the responsibility of going out and doing the very hard work of this. Right? Stewardship, put the wrong reference. But we are given responsibility for this. God tells us we're more important, we're given dominion, and we're supposed to be good stewards. So we shouldn't just kill Bambi for no reason, but if we're hungry, that's perfectly fine. Blaze away. Or a little scamper squirrel, or little bunnies in the woods, or the cows in the pasture, right? we are told to be caretakers or stewards of the earth. So, all right, that was second and third. Let me give you the first point I have. These are not necessarily in order of importance, but this way I had them listen. The first point I have is God is in charge and control. In the New Testament, he tells us that he knows when a sparrow falls to the ground. God's in control. So all these doomsday prophecies about, if we don't stop driving our cars and cut back our emissions and the earth is going to be destroyed. As Christians, we can just, without any scientific research, say that's all crazy. God is in control. He's already told us what the end is going to be. There will be some global warming. But not anything like the liberals are thinking. So he's in control of this whole thing. So when you hear liberals or environmentalists talking about how we're destroying the environment, and if we don't do something, it's the whole thought there is that we're in charge and we're in control and we can steer it, and that really doesn't happen. Wouldn't it be fun to be completely wrong on every prediction you've ever made and still be believed? Become an environmental scientist. Right. I think it was going way back into the 70s, a guy named Paul Ehrlich. Anybody heard that name? The population bomb. He argued in his book that by 1980 there'd be mass starvation. He said we've reached a tipping point. There's no way we can turn back. We've destroyed the environment. We have too many people. Starvation by 1980. He is still read and respected in colleges, even though he's completely wrong. So, what's that?
I just said I wasn't starving.
You're not. That's good. Not many of us are, unless we're dieting. But anyway, these people are just wrong and wrong and wrong, and they're still looked up to. Al Gore can talk about, by 2004, the sea is going to be up to a certain level, the temperatures will be at this point, and we get to 2004, and it hasn't happened. In fact, it's gone the other direction. And Al Gore's still looked up to and respected. That might be a little stretch to say it's respected. Okay, so the correct view. God's in charge, man's given dominion, and man is given responsibility, the stewardship of the earth. Okay. All right, which does, we kind of already hinted, but we should not just wantonly destroy it, just like you're given stewardship over your money and your time. Right? Just because you're given stewardship doesn't mean you get to go waste your time or waste your money. We're going to answer to God for it, but it's here for us to use. So. All right, third point is what is the best way to ensure that man fulfills his God-given responsibility? We're here, the Bible tells us we have dominion, we have stewardship. What's the best way to make sure we do that? And there's two, painting with a broad brush, two different answers. One answer is the government needs to regulate and mandate and control things to make sure we don't pollute the environment. The other is it needs to be left up to the free market and private property and individual property owners protecting and cleaning up the environment. Can anybody think of points for or against any of those, or examples or illustrations or anything? We are heading in America down the road of government rules and mandates. I have a cousin-in-law, I guess my wife's cousin, who works for, just lost the name, a semi-truck manufacturer. One of the big names, I just lost it. Anyway, last time I talked to him was about a year ago. The big project he was on was trying to get their trucks to have emissions below the standards that were coming up about 2 years down the road. And they were, trying to figure out how to reduce the emissions. And all of that was for the environment, to prevent global warming and global climate change and all that kind of stuff. So that's the road we're heading down collectively in America. More government control, more government regulations, more government mandates to clean up the environment and keep it clean. So the other option is private property and individual property rights. Thoughts either side. Which way do we think is going to be better?
Private property is better because you want to take care of it yourself.
Okay.
I mean,
Most likely would.
normal people would.
Normal people would. Okay.
When I was doing one of my engineering co-ops, I was on the research and development team at a nuclear power plant in Ohio, and
That would have been interesting.
they had all these different ideas and projects that we were trying to work on to eliminate some of the waste, and it was like the government, they overstepped what the teams were trying to work on, and then they would come in and put all these mandates in. And so there were like all these different ideas that we couldn't even employ because the government had to come through and say, well, those are fine for, and I mean, talking years, it's been
Yeah.
backed up. And
I'm laughing at you. That book I'm reading, the guy keeps talking about the good idea theory. When he had some mission, the people back in Washington thinking would come up with these good ideas. For the bin Laden raid, one of the supervisors wanted them to take police lights and use bin Laden's cars to make it look like this was some police action, so that if any civilians started coming up, they would think it was the police. And the guy said, first of all, we don't have room. And he said, how do we get the cars out onto the street to put the police light on? We don't have keys. But anyway, these guys thinking in Washington thought, this sounds like a great idea. It'll look like a police action. That way, if, when it is kind of hard to hide it when Black Hawk helicopters fly into a neighborhood and start blowing doors open and shooting automatic weapons. It's kind of hard to hide that in a civilian neighborhood. So they were thinking, oh, this will provide cover. Anyway, so the good idea fairy striking at the power plants. So, okay, the government, it just comes up with crazy, stupid rules for the most part. So, all right, I think you know the right answer here. Maybe you can't put fingers onto why it's the right answer. But the right answer really is private property and individuals owning things, the free market system. That provides a much better way to protect the environment than any type of government mandate or some collective action, things of that line. There's several ways to think about it. One way is to just think about, we can look around the world at places where we have the most government control, and they are just filthy pigsties. Right? There's an article in 2014 about China's population, China's pollution was like being in a nuclear winter. Right? In 2014, they had 656,000 people die each year from pollution. Luxury hotels in their large cities distribute gas masks to the guests so that they can breathe clean air. Right? I mean, there we have a communist state, extreme control, and we get crazy pollution. My uncles that used to run a machine shop that you guys would be fascinated to go to, making big mining equipment. You girls might be too, but the guys would appreciate it more. Making big continuous miners and things of that nature. They did business with some mines in China. And one time they had some executives from China over and they took them fishing in West Virginia. And these executives were flabbergasted and amazed that they were going to eat the fish that they caught in a river. Because in China, the rivers are so filthy, they wouldn't even think about it. Right? But here they're going fishing, and they take the food home and eat it. Right? It blew their mind. Right? So we can look around the world at places where there's lots of government control and we see filthy conditions. Right? That's one way. We can also think of just our sin nature. And how would our sin nature cause us, if we have private property, to make sure that at least part of the world is clean? Is that maybe a poorly worded question? Even has Mary scowling. Why does my sin nature cause me? There's other motivations, but at least on some level. Why does my sin nature cause me to make sure my grass is mowed? It caused me to pay your family way much more money than I should have to get a new roof on my house. I'm kidding. A new roof on my house. I take my trash out and throw it away. I don't just pitch it out into the yard. How does my sin nature cause that? Sin nature, talking about that. Joy?
I
Okay, that's part of it. I don't want to be the one guy on the campus that has trash piled up in his front yard, and the house falling in. Okay. Whose yard is it? It's mine. Who's going to lose money if my house caves in because the roof is destroyed? Me. Okay. It's in my personal best interest to maintain that property. Okay. So if you go to neighborhoods where people own their houses, and you're going to generally see maintained properties. Go to places where people don't own their houses. You can go to places where people rent and you still see things being maintained sometimes. But if you go to a place where the government owns the properties, right? Go to a project in Gary, right? Or in Chicago. It's filthy and nasty, right? Even to a certain extent, think of the church property. Okay? I don't have to be told by Pastor Dameron to take my trash out. All right? But collectively as a church, we do have to be told by Pastor Dameron, sometimes through workers' meeting, about take the trash to the dumpster. Don't just throw it in the hallway. Because this is, it's not any individual's private property. It belongs to the church. So it's, if the carpet gets damaged in the hallway, it's not my money. Right? So our own sin nature, our human nature, private property causes us to take care of our own things. So let me give you some other examples here. This is a quote from a pamphlet the Heritage Foundation put out. Free people, not centralized policies and mandates, come up with superior solutions to environmental problems. In the book, What Would the Founders Say? Oh, wait. We're not reading that one. We're reading We Still Hold These Truths. Another book you should read. What Would the Founders Say? Individual property rights ensure both a measure of equality and liberty. It is a byproduct of these that in general land, water, and other resources were protected by the self-interest of the individuals, not the government. Another quote, same book. What the founders saw as the major threat was not man's destruction of the environment, for both other men in the market would right that in time, but a runaway government obsessed with its own godlike powers intruding into everyday activities. Certainly, the EPA crossed that line long ago. Right? So anyway, a free market or private property, that is the best way to make sure we have the proper dominion and proper stewardship of the earth. In American history, Jacob's in there. Are you the only one right now? I think it was this book that I came across the illustration of the buffalo that are at Yellowstone now. When the government bought Yellowstone, it was wanting to create this preserve to keep the buffalo alive. They went to private ranchers who had kept the buffalo alive and bought those animals from them. It was the free market that protected the buffalo and kept them alive. It wasn't the government. All right, so people look at that and say, "Oh, look at Yellowstone. The government saved." No, there would be no buffalo if the free market hadn't been there. So, okay, so private property, individual property rights. That is the best way to make sure this happens. All right, a third thing here. I have this all under what is the best way for man to fulfill his responsibility. This thought that I think we should talk about. There should be provisions or laws against people destroying each other's property. And there already are those laws. Okay, I can't take a bat as much as I want to and go beat up Jacob's car. Partly because I think someone beat me to it. No, I'm kidding. I can't throw rocks through people's windows, or I can, but then I'm going to be personally liable because I destroyed their property. I have to reimburse them and right the wrong. That same thought holds true with property. If Mr. Armacost, I don't know, sets up this gigantic gas tank in his yard because he's tired of giving money to the gas stations, and he buys his own, and then the tank ruptures and floods my whole front lawn with gas, and he is responsible for that, not because he destroyed the environment, but because he destroyed my private property. Okay, so it is perfectly fine laws along this line of someone destroying others' private property, but the point should be they're destroying someone's private property. The laws that say, you can't drive your car down the road because it's putting out too much CO2 and is destroying the environment. You know, no. The point should be we can't destroy others' property. All right, and before we leave this, Christians today have picked up this climate change thing and claim it's our Christian duty to be concerned about the environment. And it really is, I found an article at creationcare.org, what would Jesus drive? Yeah, it wasn't a Hummer. But anyway, the broader Christian world, they've come up with two reasons why we should be concerned with this. Both of these are fraudulent, but two reasons why. First is that it's part of our dominion mandate, part of this dominion and stewardship we're supposed to exercise. That's one side of it. We've got to somehow protect this collective planet. I think I should have dominion on my property, make sure it's under control and maintained, not this collective thing. And the other is this is part of loving our neighbors. And you might think, how does that fit? Well, who wants to live in a dirty environment? So if you love your neighbors, you're going to make sure that the environment is clean. And that is the argument. Love your neighbors. So it's dominion mandate, stewardship, and love your neighbor. Those are the two reasons why Christians should be involved. Should we go back to reading the Supreme Court decisions because it's less confusing? Those are the two reasons why we should get involved. So
they're personifying the environment.
well, no, by you making sure the environment is clean, you are loving your neighbors because they get to live in that clean environment. Yeah, a little stretch. A little stretch. So, all right. Well, we didn't finish, but we will next time. So, see you then.